The sun burned high over Dusty Hollow, baking the dirt into cracked red veins that spread across the one-street town like the warning of an old curse. The air smelled of sweat, horsehair, and something sourer, gossip. Inside the saloon, ceiling fans turned slow and tired, failing to cool the thick cloud of heat and judgment that hung over every corner. That's when the laughter began. It started with a chuckle from old Martha Hargrave, wide as a hay wagon and just as loud. "Infertile," she repeated, her voice sharp as a broken bottle. "Why, that poor girl's drier than a tumbleweed in June." More laughter followed, snorts, snickers, full-bellied guffaws. Evelyn O'Hara stood frozen by the bar, cheeks flushed, hands clenched in the folds of her calico dress. Her husband, Caleb, stepped forward, jaw tight, but she held him back with a single look. Her silence was harder than a slap. The pianist stopped playing. Even the whiskey seemed to hush. Evelyn blinked once, slowly, and turned on her heel, skirts swishing as she walked out under the swinging doors, head high, spine straight. Dusty Hollow had always been unkind to the different, the quiet, the wounded, and Evelyn, with her pale blue eyes and near-ghost presence, had always stood apart. When she married Caleb, tall, sun-darkened, and once the pride of the Confederate cavalry, folks had whispered. 2 years later, with no child, they howled. They said things like, "God gives children to the righteous, and a woman's womb speaks louder than her mouth." Evelyn never answered. She baked pies for church socials, helped birth other women's babies, and cried alone by the fireplace when no one could see. But that day, after the laughter, the sting of cruel smiles, and the weight of words heavier than bullets, she walked not to her home, but straight to the small wooden building at the edge of town marked Dr. Silas Mercer. Inside, the air was cleaner, filled with the scent of alcohol and dried herbs. Mercer, ancient as the hills and twice as stubborn, looked up from his desk, eyebrows like grey wings. "I'm here for my checkup," Evelyn said, voice steady. Mercer studied her. "You sure about that? Thought today was your day to get shamed." She nodded, lips pressed. He motioned to the back room. She lay still while he did what needed doing, hands rough but kind, eyes sharp behind cloudy lenses. When he finished, he sat quiet for a moment, then leaned in close. And in a whisper meant only for her, he said, "You're already pregnant." Her breath caught. "Impossible," she whispered. "I double-checked, and I never get these things wrong." She stared at the ceiling, heart thudding like distant hoofbeats. In a town where everyone thought her barren, the truth had just bloomed like a secret flower under the desert sun. If this kind of story grabs your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives like this. For days after the doctor's whisper, Evelyn moved like a shadow in her own home, her hands brushing over her abdomen as if unsure the news was real. Caleb watched her closely, his quiet strength now laced with something deeper, hope tangled with disbelief. They had tried everything. Prayers muttered in candlelight, teas brewed by traveling gypsies, long rides into the mountains to meet women who claimed to speak with spirits. Nothing had worked. Every month brought fresh sorrow and the ache of dreams denied. "I just want to hold something that looks like us," Caleb had said once, voice breaking beneath the stars. Evelyn had held his hand and said nothing, because words felt useless when the body refused to listen. And now, this whisper from Dr. Mercer, echoing in her mind like a sacred hymn. "She's already pregnant." The phrase didn't feel like a blessing yet. It felt dangerous. 3 days later, she returned to the saloon, not to drink, but to prove she wasn't afraid. The same people were there. Martha Hargrave, polishing a silver brooch, Harold Griggs with his pipe smoke curling like snakes. They stopped talking when she walked in, as if her presence unsettled the dust too long settled on their judgment. "Back again, Evelyn?" Martha sneered, her smile sour. "Ain't no miracle happened since Moses split the sea." Evelyn stood firm. "Dr. Mercer says I'm expecting." A silence fell so hard it sucked the air from the room. Then Martha laughed, loud and cruel. "Expecting what? Another lie?" That old fool's gone blind in one eye and soft in the head. More laughter bubbled up. Not as many this time. Some people looked away. A few shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not here to convince you," Evelyn said, voice calm. "I'm just here, and I will be, with or without your blessing." She left with her chin high again, but this time her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her shawl. Behind her, voices rose in disbelief, twisting her truth into mockery. She knew the town. She knew their tongues. And now, she knew their fear. Back home, Caleb sat sharpening a blade. He looked up when she entered. "They don't believe me," she said. "Then to hell with them," he answered. "But what if it's not real?" He stood and walked over, placing a hand on her belly. "Then let them call it a dream. I'll still fight for it." Later that night they sat in silence by the fire, and Evelyn felt something strange. Not movement, not pain, just a stirring deep inside her, like a seed waking beneath warm soil. And in that moment, a thought bloomed quietly. What if the doctor wasn't wrong? What if... This time it's true. Dusty Hollow was not a place where miracles bloomed without resistance. The day after Evelyn's announcement, the town pulsed with whispers thick as locusts. Women clutched their pearls. Men snorted into their beers. No one said her name outright, but everyone knew. "She's faking it," someone muttered outside the Mercantile. "Trying to keep that man tied down," another said near the church steps. The Hargrave family, perched like vultures atop their silver mine wealth, led the charge of doubt. Martha, full of venom and Sunday righteousness, spread her own gospel from the altar of afternoon teas and sewing circles. "Dr. Mercer's gone soft," she told anyone who'd listen. "He's been seeing things ever since that heat stroke last spring." Even Evelyn's friend Lottie, usually kind-hearted, avoided her eyes when they crossed paths by the well. Evelyn felt it, the way Dusty Hollow was tightening around her like a noose. Her footsteps grew slower. Her eyes scanned shadows. Hope had taken root, but it struggled beneath the weight of suspicion. Caleb tried to shield her. He chopped wood with fury, patrolled their land with his rifle slung high. "Let 'em talk," he told her. "They don't own truth." But it wasn't just talk. People stopped buying Evelyn's preserves at the market. Children were told not to visit. She was no longer Evelyn O'Hara, wife of Caleb. She was that woman with the phantom child. Then came the knock at the door. It was Dr. Mercer, his face paler than usual, lips tight under his whiskers. He stepped in without waiting. "I heard what they're saying," he said. "I need you to listen carefully." Evelyn sat, her fingers gripping her apron. "You're pregnant. That's not in question. But this child—" He paused, looked around as if walls had ears. "This child isn't ordinary." "What do you mean?" Caleb asked, rising from the fireplace. "I've delivered near 100 babies in my time. Never felt anything like this. Her pulse, her warmth, it's like she carries a light inside her." Evelyn blinked. "Her?" Dr. Mercer nodded. "A girl. Strong heart. But there's something else. People don't want her born." The room went still. Outside, the wind picked up, hissing through the cracks like a warning. "What are you saying?" Caleb asked. "I'm saying that this town fears what it can't explain, and they'll do more than whisper if that fear keeps growing." Evelyn's hand moved slowly to her belly, the flutter still too faint to trust, but in her chest something solidified, a quiet fire, not of defiance, but of protection. "They can doubt me," she said, her voice low, "but they won't take her." Dr. Mercer's eyes softened. "Then prepare yourselves, because this is only the beginning." It began with the letter, folded twice, no name, no seal. Caleb found it wedged beneath the front door just as the morning sun cracked the horizon. "Leave town. Don't let her bring it into the world. This is your only warning." He read it twice, then burned it in the fireplace before Evelyn could see. But she noticed the change in his eyes, the way he scanned the windows like a hunter scenting danger. He started locking the barn, loading the shotgun more than usual. "What was in the letter?" she asked that night, voice low. "Nothing that changes anything," he replied. But something had changed. The townspeople no longer just whispered, now they watched, long stares from behind curtains, pauses in conversation when Caleb entered the blacksmith. One night, a rock shattered their front window. No note this time, just silence. At church, they sat alone on the back bench. No one turned to greet them. Pastor Green skipped the blessing he usually offered to expecting mothers. "They're scared," Evelyn said quietly. "They should be ashamed," Caleb answered, jaw clenched. Then someone tried to poison the well. Caleb smelled the kerosene before anyone drank. He didn't tell Evelyn that one either. He just drained the bucket and buried the barrel in the orchard. Still, in the heart of all this, Evelyn felt something growing, not just within her womb, but within herself. A quiet defiance, a rising certainty. Every night she placed her hands over her belly and whispered to the life within, as if telling her child, "You are wanted, you are real, you are mine." Then came the kick. It was subtle, just a flutter under her ribs, but enough to steal her breath. She gasped, placed her hand again, and there it was, life pushing back. When she told Caleb, his eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. "That's our girl," he said, voice breaking. The next day they told Dr. Mercer. He smiled gently, but there was tension behind his eyes. "It's happening faster than it should," he murmured. "She's growing strong and quickly." Evelyn asked what he meant. He just shook his head. "She's no ordinary child. And this town, they won't sit quiet much longer." As if to prove him right, that very night Caleb returned from checking the mill and found it in ruins. The wheel was smashed, boards torn loose, the iron gears stolen. "Sabotage," he muttered, staring at the wreckage. They had built that mill with their own hands, grain by grain, nail by nail. It was their future. And now it lay broken, a message carved into one of the beams. "Stop the birth, or we will." The windmill stood like a broken skeleton against the sunrise, splintered wood casting long, jagged shadows across the dry earth. Caleb crouched beside the wreckage, his fingers brushing the carved warning again and again. His jaw was tight, his silence heavier than grief. Evelyn said nothing. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and he covered it with his own, grounding himself in her calm. But inside, her thoughts spun like the gears that once turned water into life. The child inside her fluttered again, a gentle nudge, as if reminding her to keep going. That night Caleb was ambushed. He had ridden into town for nails and rope. On his way back, 3 riders circled him near the canyon pass. Faces covered, voices low and mean. "You were warned," one said. "You're bringing something into this world that don't belong," another growled. They knocked him from his horse, kicked him while he lay in the dust. One held a blade to his throat. "So you walk away now, and maybe you both live." Caleb fought like a man with nothing to lose. He broke one nose, disarmed another, but they left him bloodied and limping. When he returned home, Evelyn helped him to the bed without a word. She cleaned his wounds with water and salt, her hands steady even as tears slipped down her cheeks. "You're still breathing," she whispered. "Barely," he muttered, half smiling through swollen lips. "I won't let them take you from me," she said. Or her. 2 days later, Dr. Mercer came with a plan. "There's a place," he said. "Up in the high hills, past the Redwater Creek. My late wife had a cabin there, hidden, quiet." Evelyn frowned. "You want me to run?" "I want you to live," Mercer said. "And more than that, I want her to be born free." Caleb hated the thought of hiding, but Evelyn placed a hand on his chest. "We'll go. For now." The journey took them half a day by wagon. The trail was narrow and steep, and Evelyn's body ached with each bump. But when they reached the cabin, it felt like stepping out of a fever dream. Pines towered above, cool air kissed their skin, and the only sound was the rustle of leaves. Dr. Mercer settled her in, then handed Evelyn a bundle, her mother's old journal. "She used to talk about you," he said. "Said there was something different in your bloodline, something old." Evelyn opened the leather-bound book and found pages filled with sketches, notes, symbols, and stories. Tales of women who couldn't bear children until a moment of divine reckoning. Midwives who whispered to the wind, daughters born with gifts no one could name. Her fingers trembled over one passage. "The child comes not from man alone, but from the will of the earth." Evelyn closed the journal. Something ancient stirred in her chest. Not fear, recognition. The journal became Evelyn's anchor. Every night she read by lamplight, tracing her fingers over words that felt carved from her own soul. The women in those pages, healers, dreamers, mothers of mystery, were not legends. They were blood, her blood. She read about herbs that summoned strength, about dreams that guided births, about rivers where women knelt and rose with the clarity of stars in their eyes. The more she read, the more the pieces of her life fit together, not as a burden but as a design. One passage stayed with her. When the time comes, she must touch the earth. Only then will the path be made clear. On the third morning in the cabin, Evelyn woke early. The child inside her stirred more boldly now, not a flutter but a twist, as if stretching toward the sun. Caleb still slept, arm draped over her waist. Quietly she rose, took the journal, and stepped into the pine-streaked dawn. She followed an instinct, not a trail, down through mossy rocks, past a hawk's cry, and over the slope where the ferns grew thick. Then she found it. A river, narrow and slow, its surface glassy with the reflection of the rising light. She stepped into it without hesitation. The water was cold, shocking, but purifying. She let it rise to her knees, then sank slowly to her ankles, her palms brushing the water's surface. "I don't know what I'm supposed to be," she whispered, "but I know she matters." A breeze answered her, rustling through the trees with a sound like breath. Her skin tingled. The weight in her belly shifted, not with pain, but power. Then she felt it, something ancient, like a memory not her own, a sensation that she was being seen, not by eyes, but by the land itself. It wasn't frightening. It was like coming home. She closed her eyes and let the moment settle, and when she opened them again, the sun had climbed higher, casting gold across the rocks. Her dress clung to her legs, soaked. Her heart was calm. When she returned to the cabin, Caleb met her at the steps, concern flashing across his face. "I couldn't find you," he said. "I found myself," she replied, pressing the journal to her chest. Later that day, Dr. Mercer examined her again. His hands paused as they touched her belly, his brows furrowing. "She's more formed than I expected." "What does that mean?" Caleb asked. "It means she's coming soon, sooner than we planned." Evelyn didn't flinch. "Then we'll be ready." That night, by the fire, Evelyn braided her hair and spoke softly to her daughter. "You are more than their fear. You are what they couldn't imagine." And far down the mountain, in the valley where Dusty Hollow stirred in its beds of judgment and fear, the air shifted. As if the town itself felt something was coming, and it could not be stopped. They returned to Dusty Hollow beneath a sky thick with clouds, the wind restless and sharp. The town hadn't changed, but something in Evelyn had. She walked beside Caleb, her belly full, her gaze unflinching. People stared from porches, curtains twitched, and whispers followed their footsteps like shadows. But this time she did not shrink. She carried something stronger than fear. Dr. Mercer had warned them, "They'll see your return as defiance. Be prepared for their worst." And their worst came quickly. At the general store, the owner refused to sell them supplies. "I don't serve folks who bring trouble," he muttered. At the church, Pastor Green turned his back. At the town square, Martha Hargrave stood tall, flanked by her two sons, both armed, both sneering. "You should have stayed gone," she called out. "Whatever's growing inside you, it's not natural. You're cursed." Evelyn didn't answer. She held Caleb's hand tighter and walked past. But the murmurs didn't stop. By evening, a crowd had formed near the sheriff's office, men with rifles, women with torches. Caleb kept Evelyn inside Dr. Mercer's house, pacing like a wolf in a cage. "They want a fight," he said. "They want a reason." "They're scared," Evelyn replied, "and scared people burn what they don't understand." It was then that the door burst open, and in stepped Sheriff Wade. Young, quiet, and often dismissed as too soft for the badge, Wade had always watched from the sidelines. But tonight he stood tall, dust on his boots, hat in his hand. "I heard what they're planning," he said. "They want to force you out, or worse." Caleb moved toward him. "Then stop them." "I will. I swore to protect all people in this town. Even if they don't think you count anymore." Evelyn looked at him surprised. "Why help us?" "Because I've seen real evil," Wade said. "And it doesn't live in mothers." He left with a promise. He'd stand between them and the mob if it came to it. And it did. At dusk, the shouting began. Torches lit the main road. A wave of townsfolk surged toward Mercer's home, voices tangled in fury and fear. "Bring her out. She's not one of us. End it before it's born." Evelyn stood by the window, calm as the moon. Caleb loaded his rifle. Mercer checked the back door. Then came Wade, stepping into the street alone, hand resting on the pistol at his side. "You take one more step," he said, "and I arrest every last one of you for unlawful assembly and attempted harm." The mob hesitated. Someone shouted, "She's a witch!" Wade's voice rose. "She's a mother, and anyone who wants to challenge that will answer to me." The standoff hung in the air, electric and dangerous, and Evelyn, behind the glass, whispered to her daughter, "You are the reason they tremble." The first contraction hit like a wave against stone, deep, sudden, and undeniable. Evelyn staggered, gripping the edge of the window, as the crowd outside roared in frustration. Caleb rushed to her side. "It's starting," she gasped. "She's coming." Caleb's eyes darted to the door, then to the doctor. "We can't move her now." Dr. Mercer was already unrolling clean cloths and boiling water over the fireplace. "We'll do it here. We've got no choice." Outside, the mob had fractured. Some shouted, others hesitated, unsure now in the face of Wade's unshaken stance. But among them, the Hargrave brothers moved with a darker purpose. Quiet, focused. One broke off from the group, circling the house, weapon drawn. Inside, Evelyn lay on the cot, breath shallow, fists clenched. Sweat traced lines down her temples. "She's early," Mercer said. "But she's ready." The pain came again, fiercer this time, twisting through her spine like lightning. Evelyn bit her lip to keep from screaming. Her whole body fought against itself, but her heart beat only for the life pushing its way through. Then, a crash. The back window shattered. Caleb turned in time to see a figure crawl through, gun raised. He didn't hesitate. He tackled the man, fists flying. The rifle clattered to the floor. Dr. Mercer stepped between Evelyn and the fight. "Keep going," he whispered. "Don't stop for them." Another contraction, another surge. Evelyn screamed this time, long and raw, and the sound split through the house like thunder. Outside, the mob flinched. Wade pulled his revolver. "I said no one enters this house," he barked. "Anyone who tries crosses me first." Inside, the Hargrave brother rolled free, landed a punch to Caleb's ribs. Caleb staggered, then lunged forward and slammed the man against the wall. A loud crack. The intruder dropped, unconscious. "Lock that door," Caleb told Mercer, breath ragged. The doctor nodded, then turned back to Evelyn. "It's time. I can see the head." Evelyn's vision blurred. Her body burned, but deep inside a voice rose, a memory, a lineage, a promise. She bore down, screamed again, and pushed with everything left in her. The candlelight flickered, the house shook with noise, rage outside, struggle within, then silence, followed by a cry. Not hers. The child. High and bright and full of life. Evelyn opened her eyes. Dr. Mercer smiled, cradling a red-faced infant. "A girl," he said, "strong, loud, whole." Caleb knelt beside them, tears streaking dirt down his cheeks. Evelyn reached out, touched her daughter's cheek and whispered, "You made it." The doctor handed her the child. Evelyn held her close, skin to skin, heart to heart. The baby's cry faded. Peace returned. Outside, the mob's noise softened. Doubt cracked their fury. Fear turned to silence. But the Hargraves were not done. The baby's cry still echoed in the room when the second Hargrave brother burst through the front door, shotgun raised, face twisted with hate. Caleb turned just in time. "Move, and I end it," the man snarled. Dr. Mercer stepped in front of Evelyn and the child, arms out. "Don't do this, Boyd." "You don't get it," Boyd growled. "That thing she birthed, it ain't right. She's the reason this town is turning to ash." Caleb's voice was low, steady. "That's my daughter, and if you want to leave here breathing, you lower that weapon now." Boyd's hands shook. His eyes flicked to the baby, then to Evelyn, then to Mercer. He hesitated. Then the front door creaked again. Sheriff Wade stepped inside, gun drawn, slow and deliberate. "Drop it, Boyd," Wade said. "Right now." Boyd hesitated one breath too long. Caleb lunged, knocking the barrel aside as it fired. The shot tore into the ceiling, wood splintering above. Wade tackled Boyd from behind, slammed him into the floor. Silence. Only the baby's soft sounds remained. Wade stood, chest heaving, and looked at Evelyn. "You all right?" She nodded. "She's safe." Wade cuffed Boyd, dragged him outside into the hush that had fallen over Dusty Hollow. The crowd had gone quiet. Some dropped their torches. Some backed away entirely. "Go home," Wade said. "Show's over." One man in the back spat. "She cursed us." "No," Wade said, voice sharp. "You cursed yourselves the moment you feared a child more than your own hate." Inside, Evelyn sat with her daughter against her chest. Caleb knelt beside them, brushing sweat from her brow. "She's perfect," he whispered. Dr. Mercer checked the infant, nodding with quiet awe. "Stronger than she should be, alert." "She's watching everything already." Evelyn met her daughter's gaze, deep, ancient, knowing. A chill danced along her spine, but it wasn't fear. It was recognition. Later that night, while the town slept under uneasy stars, Evelyn rocked her baby and hummed an old tune from her mother's journal. The air in the house felt lighter, as if something dark had passed through and been turned away. "I will name her Grace," she said softly, "because that's what she is." Caleb smiled. "Grace O'Hara, strongest soul in Dusty Hollow." Dr. Mercer sat by the fire, exhaustion sinking into his bones. "This town won't forget what happened tonight. But they'll change, or they'll break trying." Outside the wind shifted. Not harsh, not violent, just clean. Like the earth was breathing easier. And in the shadows of the valley, where fear had once held tight, something else took root. Not acceptance yet, not love, but the beginning of understanding. Grace slept against her mother's chest, small fingers curled into Evelyn's blouse. She had come into the world in fire and defiance, and she was here to stay. Morning came quietly over Dusty Hollow. The town stirred slower than usual, as if unsure how to face itself in the light. Doors creaked open, eyes peeked from behind curtains, but no one spoke of the night before. In the O'Hara home, Evelyn sat on the porch, Grace bundled in her arms, eyes wide and curious. Caleb leaned against the railing, watching the sunrise like it was the first one worth seeing in years. "She didn't cry once all night," he said softly. "She knows she's safe," Evelyn replied. Dr. Mercer arrived just before noon, his steps heavier than usual. He greeted them with a nod and sat beside Evelyn without a word. After a while, he pulled something from his coat, an old worn letter. "My wife wrote this before she passed," he said. "Said I'd know who to give it to one day." Evelyn unfolded the paper slowly. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. "There will come a woman of the earth, bearer of a light that cannot be extinguished. When the world turns on her, she must not turn away. She will birth more than a child. She will birth change." Evelyn folded it again and held it to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "Doctor..." Mercer smiled, tired but content. "My work's done." He passed away 2 nights later, quietly in his sleep. The town buried him at the edge of the orchard, beside the chapel. For the first time in years, Dusty Hollow rang with honest sorrow. Even Martha Hargrave, eyes red, said nothing cruel at the service. Things began to shift, the whispers stopped. A few townsfolk brought food. Lottie returned with a blanket she'd made herself. The sheriff deputized a new man to patrol with him, said the town was worth protecting now. And Caleb, with his sleeves rolled up and Grace in a sling across his chest, began to rebuild the mill, nail by nail, beam by beam. But this time he planted a sapling beside it, a strong oak rooted deep in new soil. Someday, he told Evelyn, she'll climb that tree. Evelyn smiled, and never fall. As summer ripened, Grace grew strong, bright-eyed, always reaching, toward light, toward sound, toward life. People came to see her, some out of curiosity, others out of hope. She was no longer a threat. She was a beginning. And though Dusty Hollow still bore its scars, it also bore something else. The knowledge that miracles didn't need permission to arrive. They just needed someone brave enough to carry them. If Evelyn's journey moved you, subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And don't miss the next one. Just click the video on your screen now.